Hey traders, Akil Stokes here. I am back for another episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Thank you as always for deciding to take a few minutes out of your day to come join me. In today's episode, I'm going to vent a little bit, so we're going to get a little bit personal, but I promise it's not just me being selfish. It's also going to give you guys a valuable lesson on how to ask for advice. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you a conversation that I had with a trader who was reaching out for help and, well, he just went about it in all the wrong ways. So, newer traders, make sure you bring out your pad and pen for this one. As always, subscribe, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Ooh, man, I'll tell you what, guys, if I would have recorded this episode about 45 minutes ago, you'd be in store for a pretty fiery session. I'll tell you why in a little bit, but luckily I've calmed down, son. It's man night here in the Stokes household, meaning that the wife is gone. So we have a built-in excuse to do manly things like jumping off of beds and ramming each other, you know, the grunt, rah type of stuff that boys do, until ultimately someone gets hurt and starts crying. It was me tonight. But I had just finished up wrapping up a few videos. I hit social media pretty hard today, did a trading edge video for our clients. I put part of that on YouTube because it was a follow-up from a previous lesson, and even shot one over to TradingView. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. Had a nice little dinner, got my daily fantasy team in, and I started going through my social media messages. Now, for you guys that are new to me, I am that guy that answers every single question or comment that I get as long as I don't miss it. So I've always felt, essentially the philosophy is I felt if people took the time to write me a message, whether it's just like a compliment or maybe it's a comment or maybe a question, I feel that I owe them enough to respond. You know, sometimes if it's with a very long message, sometimes it's in video format, sometimes it's just with a thumbs up emoji, but at least give them some type of feedback saying, hey, you know, I am reading this stuff. That's something that I'm very proud of. It does take up a lot of time, but I think it's well worth it. And something that has really helped my reputation here, in the trading industry. So I was going through my messages today and I found one on Instagram, and I'm going to read you this word by word. Aside from a few cuss words that are in there, because I really want you to gain my perspective on this. Now, understand, I get a lot of messages a day. There's a lot of traders asking for advice, so it's a very time-consuming process. So when I get one that isn't too kind, I sort of feel a certain way, not because of the trolling nature of the comment, but more so it's because, look, I just wasted my time that I could be using speaking and helping another trader. But here, I want you to walk through this with me. So here's the initial message that I got. It says, hey man, thanks for the new update. I've taken a fall on this one. I predicted some stuff, but had some things go on at home, which took priority. Kids always come first, which I agree. Family first all the time. Anywho, please, I'm going to show you where I'm at, and please take into account that I've had nobody show me anything. Am I on the right track with this? So essentially the trader is sharing with me a chart and asking, hey, am I on the right track with my analysis? Now, if you guys know me, it's very hard to critique analysis. I don't try to get into the habit of doing so, because unless I am working with you closely and I know exactly how you trade and what you're looking for and pretty much your rules of engagement, meaning the exact strategy and rule set that you're supposed to be following, it's hard for me to tell you that you're right or wrong. In the trading industry, it's basically built off of disagreement in the market, right? If we all agreed on the same thing, price would never move. The price would just stay at that price. So there's always someone that thinks a particular currency pair is undervalued and they're looking to buy. On the other hand, there's always a person looking at a particular currency pair and think it's overvalued and looking to sell. And then there's always a winner and a loser in that type of way. So I try not to get in that, but I try to give as much feedback as I can because I'm sometimes an overly nice guy. So I look at this trader's chart and I open it up, and there's a bunch of lines on here and whatnot. And it looks like Elliott wave analysis, right? You've got the A, B, C, D, the 1, 2, 3s on there. It's an Elliott wave type of deal. So I politely respond to the trader. I said, hey, I'm not an Elliott wave trader, so I can't really lend any advice on it. I'm sorry. And the typical response to that is like, oh man, that's okay. You know, can you forward me to anyone that does Elliott wave analysis? You know, thanks for your time anyway. That's what you usually get from the more professional question askers out there. However, this time I get a prompt response, right? A very prompt response, literally a few seconds after I type. You know, on Instagram in the DM, you can see people when they're typing. So I know it's about to come. And he says, and yet people say you are the most helpful trader. By the way, what he's referring to is this year I was voted 19th most helpful trader on the Twitter and having the fourth most helpful, no, other way around, fourth most helpful trader on the Twitter and having the 19th best rated trading channel on YouTube. So, you know, that's what he's referring to as being helpful, right? So he says, people say you're the most helpful trader. Don't forget, people helped you get where you are, brother. And I took that some type of way. I'm like, okay, that sounded a little bit harsh. That sounded a little bit harsh. So, you know, maybe when people type, it's different from having a conversation, right? Maybe he meant something else. Maybe the tone was different than I thought, but it wasn't the response that I anticipated. So I respond like this. I said, really? Question mark. Are you serious? Let me ask you this. What good would it do for me to give you advice on something that I don't use? I am not an Elliott wave trader. Right. One of the things that I try not to do in teaching and coaching and mentoring is I try not to give advice on stuff that I do not feel I have mastered. I give a lot of advice, but if I don't know something, right, I don't want to give you advice on something I don't know because I don't want to give you bad advice. Being in the position that I'm in, if I were to give you advice on Elliott wave, now I am familiar with Elliott waves. I know how it works, but I'm not an Elliott wave trader. So I don't know more than the basics of how it moves and stuff like that. I don't have any strategies based off of it. I've got some personal issues with Elliott wave, which is why I don't trade it. But again, if I were to give you some advice on Elliott wave, and let's just say it were wrong, being in the position that I'm in, you would probably trust whatever I say because I'm the fourth most helpful trader on the Twitter and the 19th most helpful trader on YouTube. Did I mention that earlier? If not, just remember that. But I don't want to give you bad advice because you're going to go on thinking that it is right. And that could lead to so many mistakes. That's one of the problems that many traders make, is that at some point they heard advice from somewhere. Most likely it's YouTube. I was like that as well. For most traders or many traders hear bad advice from somewhere. Because they're at such a young stage, right? They're at that unconscious competence stage where they're kind of just like a sponge and they're taking everything in. They can't really determine what is right and what is wrong, right? Right is based off of how many subscribers the YouTube channel has or how many retweets the post have, right? If they have a lot of retweets or a lot of subscribers, they must be an expert, right? That's how it works. And what happens is many of them take in wrong advice. And they carry that with them throughout their trading journey until someone comes along and tells them that it's not right. And unfortunately, if no one ever comes along, then they end up doing the wrong thing until eventually going broke. So that's kind of why I don't mean to sound rude, but that's kind of a principle that I've adapted in my teaching. If I don't know something, I'm just going to tell you I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you to make myself seem bigger. So I say, really, seriously, blah, blah, blah. And I made a comparison. I said, that's like asking a baseball player for advice about basketball. Is it not? And then here it goes, right? I get another response promptly. It said, seriously, man, I straight up asked you to seriously help me. You straight up told me to go jam it, which I don't remember straight up telling anyone to do that. But, you know, maybe this guy's reading the wrong message. I ask you yet again to point me in a direction. And yet because I have Elliott blank up, you think I use that. Let's pause there for a second. Because I have Elliott blank on my chart, you think that I use that. Yes, I do. If you have something on your chart, I'm assuming you're using it. If not, why would it be on your chart? Could be wrong here, but it's interesting. Anyway, dude, I use math and common sense to do predictions based on a series of information based around a rubber band, man, as you were taught. So why be arrogant about how you help, man? As I said, nobody has shown me a thing. I know pretty much nothing. And now I'm using what I think is right. Wow. So like I said, man, thanks heaps. You've been so helpful. Cheers, brother. And it goes on. I respond and say, unbelievable. Here's some advice for the future. When asking for help, perhaps try and be more respectful. I wish you the best on your trading journey. So, I take the high road, as always. Oh my God, seriously, don't even. You're the most arrogant blank, right? I've come across so far. I seriously hope you fall flat on your face, you arrogant blank. Just remember, you didn't get this far on your own, you clown. And then I haven't responded after that, and I won't. And originally, I was very upset with this. Because believe it or not, I still get to the point where I always question myself. Did I do something wrong? And I go back and I evaluate. I don't think I did in the situation, but I ask myself that. Could I have handled that differently? Should I have just told him some random BS about Elliott Wave to make him feel happy and make myself feel happy? But again, I had some time to think about it while I was butting heads with my kid. And I decided that, we're going to flip this and we're going to use this as a lesson for newer traders asking for advice. So here it goes. If you're a newer trader asking for advice, just do the opposite of what this trader did. But seriously, that is good advice right there. But seriously, you got to have respect. You got to understand whoever you're asking advice to is probably a very busy person. And this goes for beyond trading as well. It can go for any type of mentor. Anyone you're asking to take their time out of their busy day to help you out, you should be grateful for that, right? Because you can imagine that you're not the only one asking these questions. So if they take any time to respond to you, even if it's a no or I don't know, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, blah, blah, blah. And that's the mindset that you want to have as a newer trader. You want to have a respectful mindset, right? You have to give respect to get respect. And I'll tell you what, in this situation, if this trader would have been respectful, I probably would have pointed him in the direction of someone that I trust that uses Elliott Wave and say, hey, I don't know, but you may want to, hit this person up and ask him for advice. And that trader may have gotten an answer that he was looking for. But because of the disrespect that happened, the door was shut on any further conversation or any further conversation that would have been positive. And we just have to understand that it's like doing a mentorship, right? Being a mentee. When I got mentored in investments in the stock market, I essentially came to my mentor's office each and every day and I just sat there. I sat there and listened. When I had a chance, I would ask questions in between meetings, but there were plenty of times where we were supposed to go over something and he didn't have time for it. And I would just sit there and listen and watch. There were plenty of times where we may have had meetings and he never showed up. And I would just sit there and wait, right? I was in the position where he was earning nothing from me being in there. It was a blessing. It was beneficial for him for me just to be allowed to sit there and take in his day-to-day actions. And if I learned something, that was icing on the cake. So be grateful, guys. If you're going out there asking advice from traders, be polite. If you approach someone in a polite manner, they're more likely to give you a polite answer. They're more likely to give you an answer that you're looking for. But if you approach them very rudely, right? If you approach them very aggressively, hey, give me this. I demand this. You're probably not going to get a response. And when you don't get a response, you're going to be left in the same boat that you were before you came. Respect is key. Remember that. So I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to vent. I don't do it too often, but every once in a while I need to get stuff like that off of my chest. And Well, when I can turn it into a valuable lesson, that's just killing two birds with one stone. The key takeaway that you should get from today's podcast is that respect is key, whether you're the mentor or the mentee. Even having respect for the markets is very, very important. Going into the markets believing that we're entitled to success is one of the quickest ways to go broke. Trust me.